When I was 11 years old, life changed. The summer that I turned 12, my father volunteered for the Naval Air and was immediately called down to Pensacola, Florida, where he was going to open up a school of aerial photography for the Naval Air Force. Everyone in the service could see that more war was coming, and they were already fighting in Europe. We started school at Colts Neck, the little Colts Neck school where we had been going since I was in the 4th grade. But about October, we transferred out of that school and drove down to Pensacola to be with Dad. He was in the midst of working with a squadron of men that he was training to do aerial photography in, what kind of a plane was it, Dad?
What?
What was the kind of plane Dad flew for his aerial photography?
TBM.
A TBM, which was a torpedo bomber, but where they'd taken the opening in the bottom where the torpedoes dropped out and made it into a camera slot where they installed a heavy camera. And they were flying here, there, and everywhere, practicing with these planes and doing the schoolwork in the meantime. And he had found a house for us in a little town called Warrington, which was where practically no one but Navy people lived, right outside of the Naval Air Station. I went to 3 different schools that fall after we left Colts Neck to find one that was right for me, and we finally did find a good one that one of the Sunday school teachers in the little church in Pensacola taught in, and she recommended, and in fact I was in her class. And I had a good year in school, and I had 2 dear friends in Pensacola. One was the daughter of the commandant of the base, and the other was a Navy officer's daughter, and the 3 of us all went to school together. We were there that was my 7th grade year, and we were still there in 8th grade, but at Christmas time, that Christmas, I was out on a Sunday after church at noontime. I guess we'd come home and had lunch, the whole family. And my dad and I were riding our bikes around in the little suburb of Warrington. And a man was out in the driveway of his house washing his car. And he suddenly dropped the bucket he was using and rushed out to the street and yelled at us and said, "The Japanese have invaded Pearl Harbor." And my heavens, that was a big life change for us and for everyone in the United States. And Dad, I remember turning around and looking at my father, and his face had gone absolutely white. And he turned around on his bicycle and raced home with me following, and got into his uniform and went right out to the base. And from then on, his operations with his aerial photography squadron were very expanded and quickened. And before the first of the year even, he had been transferred down to a place called Opelika, which was another Navy base, but it was down near Miami, Florida. And he and his squadron flew from there out to the islands of the Bahamas and did their practice mapping, because that was what they were going to be doing out in the Pacific. They were going to be mapping islands that the Marines would then come and land on. So my sister Nancy and my little baby brother by that time, who was 2 years old, no, he must have turned 3 because his birthday was in December, were put into a private girls' school They did have boys, little boys, in the preschool, but the school itself, once first grade started, was just for girls. And it was right on Biscayne Bay, beautiful location, and it was a very lovely place to be going to school. And Dad, who was always crazy about boating, immediately found a very nice second-hand boat for sale and bought it, and we used to go out in it on Sundays and picnic and take friends and sail in Biscayne Bay. And and we were living in a house that belonged to my grandparents, my DeGarmo grandparents. And Padre was quite elderly by that time, and he and Nana moved upstairs. There was an apartment upstairs, and they moved up there, and we had the whole downstairs, which was built around a patio that had just a screen roof. It was really open to the weather. And my brother Dig bought an alligator, a little one, of course, and because there was a great big bird bath sort of thing, a fountain, a pond, little cement pond fixture thing in the middle of the patio. And then, of course, there were all sorts of green plants and things planted in the patio. And he put the alligator in the bird bath, or whatever you want to call it. And it was about 6 feet across, so it was a good size little body of water. And the alligator seemed very happy in there. And one time when Dig was away, he told me that I needed to feed it for him. And we used to give it little pieces of raw meat, ground hamburger meat and things like that. And I was feeding it, and it grabbed hold of my finger, and I jerked my hand back with the alligator on the end of the finger and went whoom, slung my finger out in the air, and the alligator fell off and went crashing against the wall of the house. And I was afraid that Dig had lost his alligator, but it was very much alive. And I caught it and put it back in the pond and hoped for the best. And no, he never heard about it, so I guess he was... And in fact, when we moved back up to New Jersey at the end of the school year, because we always went back and spent the summers on the farm, and at the end of that school year, we went back up and we took the alligator in the car with us. And eventually it got away up at the farm. So we never could find it or discover what had happened to it. And I'm sure by midwinter it had frozen to death. But at any rate, that was the story of Mr. Alligator. And I went for the rest of 8th grade to school at Miss Harris's private school for girls. And then the next year, Dig and I were sent away to boarding school, and I came out to St. Louis, to Principia, and that was the last time I ever really lived at home for a full year until I was totally grown and through college and had a job teaching school near home, and moved back in with my parents and lived with them for another part of a year. But that was really the end of my childhood.